Your brain evolved hundreds of thousands of years ago on the African savanna. Back then, the rules were simple. Avoid danger, find food, stay with the tribe. If you survive long enough to reproduce, the brain did its job. But today, you're not hunting antelope. You're trying to focus, build skills, learn complex systems, make long-term decisions. And here's the problem. Your brain still runs ancient survival software, which means your brain constantly works against you. It pushes you toward comfort. It avoids effort. It craves instant rewards. That's why you procrastinate. That's why you get distracted. That's why you forget things you just studied yesterday. It's not laziness, it's biology. But here's the interesting part. Elite performers figured out something most people never realize. You cannot trust your brain. You have to override it. 3 systems, 3 psychological hacks. Once you see them, you'll never think about your brain the same way again. Chapter 1, the comfort trap. Most people think productivity is about motivation. Wrong. Productivity is about fighting comfort. Your brain loves comfort. Comfort means safety. Safety means survival. So your brain constantly pushes you toward the easiest option available. Check your phone, open YouTube, scroll one more post, eat another snack, tiny rewards, tiny dopamine hits. Neuroscientists call dopamine the motivation chemical. But that's misleading. Dopamine isn't about happiness, it's about pursuit. Your brain releases dopamine when it expects an easy reward, which is why social media is so addictive. Every scroll might reveal something interesting. A meme, a message, a notification. Your brain keeps pulling the lever, just like a slot machine. Psychologists at Stanford studied this phenomenon in depth. Variable rewards produce the strongest behavioral addiction. You don't know what's coming, so you keep checking, which destroys focus. Cal Newport calls this attention residue. When you switch tasks, part of your attention stays behind. Meaning when you check your phone for 30 seconds, your brain doesn't fully return to the original task. A University of California study discovered something brutal. After a single interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to regain full focus. 23 minutes. Now think about your typical work session. Phone buzz, check it. Email arrives, reply, another notification, look again. Your brain never actually enters deep focus. You are permanently stuck in shallow thinking, which feels productive, but produces almost nothing. Here's the brutal truth. Your brain doesn't want deep work. Deep work requires effort. Effort means uncertainty. Uncertainty means potential danger. So your brain constantly tries to escape. Elite performers know this, which is why they build environments that remove choice. Writers disconnect the internet. Programmers block distracting websites. Athletes train in controlled environments. Not because they lack discipline, because they understand something. Discipline is unreliable. Environment is powerful. The easier something is to access, the more your brain will choose it. Remove distractions. And suddenly your brain has nowhere to escape. Focus becomes inevitable. But here's the problem though. Even if you remove distractions, your brain still sabotages you because of something called cognitive bias. Chapter 2, the brain's favorite lie. Most people think their brain wants truth. Wrong. Your brain wants certainty. Truth requires effort. Certainty feels safe. So your brain constantly invents stories that feel right, even when they're completely wrong. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. You search for information that confirms what you already believe and ignore everything else. This bias is so powerful it shapes politics, relationships, and entire economies. Intelligence analysts know this very well, because one wrong assumption can start a war. During the Cold War, intelligence agencies discovered something terrifying. Highly intelligent analysts were still making catastrophic mistakes, not because they lacked information, because their brains filtered information incorrectly. The CIA began training analysts in something called structured analytic techniques, a system designed to fight the brain's natural biases. One of the most powerful techniques is called the analysis of competing hypotheses. Instead of asking, what evidence supports my theory, analysts ask, what evidence disproves it? They actively try to destroy their own ideas. Most people never do this. They protect their opinions. Experts attack them. Charlie Munger talks about this constantly. He calls it inversion thinking. Instead of asking, how do I succeed? Ask, how do I fail? Then avoid those conditions. It's a powerful mental trick because your brain is terrible at predicting success, but excellent at recognizing danger. Doctors use the same strategy. Before surgery, they ask, what could go wrong? Pilots use pre-flight checklists for the same reason. Your brain cannot be trusted under pressure, so systems replace intuition. But here's the problem though. Even if you overcome distraction, even if you fight bias, your brain still has one more weakness, memory. Chapter 3, the leaky brain. Most people think forgetting means you're bad at learning. Wrong. Forgetting is the brain's default setting. Your brain deletes information constantly, on purpose, because storing everything would be impossible. In 1885, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered something shocking. The forgetting curve. After learning new information, you lose about 50% within 1 hour. Within a day, nearly 70% is gone. Within a week, almost everything disappears. Your brain is a leaky bucket, which explains why most people reread the same material again and again. They highlight textbooks, they take pages of notes, then forget everything anyway. Because rereading is passive, your brain recognizes the information, which creates the illusion of competence. But recognition is not memory. Researchers behind the book Make It Stick prove something fascinating. Students who repeatedly reread material felt more confident, but performed worse on tests. Students who tested themselves repeatedly remembered far more. Why? Because retrieval strengthens memory. When your brain struggles to recall information, it marks that information as important. Neurochemicals are released, neural connections strengthen. The memory becomes easier to access next time. This is called active recall. Elite learners use it constantly. Medical students use flashcards. Language learners practice retrieval. Chess players replay positions from memory. They don't reread, they test themselves. But here's the interesting part. Retrieval alone isn't enough. Timing matters. If you review too early, you waste time. If you review too late, you forgot everything. Which is why spaced repetition exists. Ebbinghaus discovered that reviewing information right before you forget it dramatically strengthens memory. Every review extends the forgetting curve. Eventually, the memory becomes permanent. Software like Anki automates this process. But you don't need software. You just need spacing. Review today, review tomorrow, review next week, review next month. 4 repetitions can lock information in for years. This is how surgeons memorize thousands of procedures. How pilots remember emergency checklists. How intelligence analysts retain massive information networks. They don't trust their brains. They use systems, but here's the thing. Even if you master focus, even if you defeat bias, even if you optimize memory, your brain still has one final weakness: energy. Chapter 4, the energy illusion. Most people think productivity depends on time. Wrong, productivity depends on energy. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's energy. Despite being only 2% of your body weight, thinking is expensive, which is why your brain constantly looks for shortcuts. Psychologists call these heuristics, mental shortcuts that reduce cognitive effort. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they produce terrible decisions. But here's the bigger problem: decision fatigue. The more decisions you make in a day, the worse your decisions become. A famous study of Israeli judges revealed something surprising. Parole decisions dropped dramatically later in the day. Early in the morning, prisoners had a high chance of parole. Later in the afternoon, almost everyone was denied. Not because the cases changed, because the judges were mentally exhausted. Your brain defaults to the safest decision when tired, which usually means doing nothing. Elite performers design their lives around this limitation. Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day. Mark Zuckerberg does the same. Not because they lack fashion sense, because they remove unnecessary decisions. Athletes follow strict routines. Writers follow daily schedules. Executives batch decisions. The goal is simple: protect mental energy for important work. Most people do the opposite. They waste energy on trivial choices. What to eat, what to wear, what to watch. Then when it's time to think deeply, the brain is already tired. So it chooses the easiest path again. Distraction, avoidance, procrastination. Your brain isn't broken. It's efficient. It's trying to conserve energy. But in a world that rewards deep thinking, that efficiency becomes sabotage. Which brings us to the real lesson. Your brain is not your boss. It's your tool, and tools require systems. Remove distractions. Challenge your assumptions. Test your memory. Protect your energy. 4 rules, simple but incredibly powerful. Because once you understand this, you stop trusting your instincts. You start designing your environment. You start building cognitive systems. And suddenly, your brain stops working against you. But here's the problem though. Even if you fix all of this, most people still learn painfully slow. They improve, but they improve inefficiently. Which is why some people seem to master skills 10 times faster than everyone else. They follow a completely different learning system. One used by surgeons, chess grandmasters, and elite performers. And once you see it, learning becomes almost unfair. That's exactly what I break down in the next video.